Hello beautiful souls, my name is Andrea. Welcome back to my channel, a show about personal development where I talk about manifestation, spirituality or ancient origins, realities beyond the physical, and so many more. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about how I developed my intuition. And I've organized this video in 3 parts. In the first part, I'm going to be talking about our social conditioning and how we have been taught to repress our intuition. In the second part, I'm going to be talking about what intuition is and how we can recognize it. And last but not least, I'm going to share a little bit from my own personal experience so you can kind of see how that worked for me and how I've gotten to the place where I am now. So if you want to learn all the details, make sure to watch till the end. So as I've said in the first part of the video, I want to start talking a little bit about our social conditioning and the way in which we have been directly or indirectly trained by society to become disconnected from our own internal guidance. And I want to talk a little bit about why that happens. Because many times when we think of intuition, we directly think of psychic abilities or extrasensorial capabilities that we develop once we start trusting our intuition. But before we get to that, I want to start from the very beginning so we can see how that applies to our daily life. And I want to start by saying that our intuition is very closely related to our emotional side, to our sensations, and to the way in which we listen to our body communicating with us and whether or not we trust that in the first place. So if you're somebody who represses their emotions, that implicitly means there's a disconnection from yourself, from your internal self, and as well from your intuition. But what does that mean? Every single one of us has our own energetical blueprint with which we are very connected in childhood, right? We are very connected with our imagination, with our intuition. Everything is so much more vivid and playful when we are a child, and as we grow older we tend to lose contact with that. So I want to start this video by doing an exercise of imagination and go back in time mentally to the time when we were children, to the time before we learned that we have to be a certain way in order to be accepted within society and in order to fit in. Some of you might say, well, you know, I've always had a little bit more of a rebellious personality, I've always had a strong personality. Or some of you might say, well, you know, I've been the opposite. I've always been a little bit more on the introverted, shy. But I want to stop you right there and tell you that the personality with which you identify yourself right now is a byproduct of the environment that you grew up in. So the way you developed your internal self was based on adaptive behaviors that you had to learn in order to survive your environment, whatever that means for you. So I want to go back even before that time, and I want to go back to the time where you felt free to be exactly yourself, which was in childhood. And I want you to remember what were your likes and dislikes. What were you most drawn towards? How did you feel like you expressed yourself? What was that imaginary world like for you? Because our intuition is exactly connected to that authentic and unfiltered part of us. And as we grow older, as I've said, because of our social conditioning, because we had to learn that it's accepted to be a certain way and not other ways, and we have been taught that, you know, you have to listen to authority figures and you have to listen to what you're told and you have to do what you're told. And Maybe you've been told, your internal world doesn't matter, that is just imagination, or whatever it is that has been gradually programming you and me to shut down that internal voice and to believe that it doesn't matter, that it's not true, and that it must not be trusted. So, in other words, this disconnection from our intuition, it's a natural consequence from our social conditioning, because we were programmed based on the idea that it's not important what I think, but it's important what others think. And personally, I believe that the strength of your intuition is directly equivalent to your level of self-confidence. Specifically because your intuition is your internal guidance. If you're not able to trust what your body is telling you, you cannot say that you have a strong and developed intuition. For example, if let's say you're eating and you're sitting down at the table and you're having a meal, but your body, your stomach is telling you that you're full, that you cannot have any more. But instead of listening to that internal guidance, instead of listening to your intuition, you keep eating, and that means you went directly against your intuition. And obviously this is just an example, but it really reflects the way that our body gives us little signs and clues throughout our daily lives that lets us know what would be the best way to go. And I think it's important to become aware of this, because if we are not able to listen to our bodies, if we're not able to follow our intuition in our daily lives through small tasks that we go through, we're not going to be able to grow that intuition onto other areas of our life that require that fundamental confidence and that fundamental trust within yourself. Which takes me to the second part of this video, which is what intuition is specifically and how do we get to recognize it. So before filming this video, I was doing some research online, and the word intuition actually comes from Latin intuit and translates to contemplate or to consider. So in other words, our intuition is something that is always present, but we have been then again conditioned not to take that part of ourselves into consideration. And as I've said, it is really connected to your senses, it's really connected to your emotional side, or whatever way you use to communicate with yourself, whether it is through your emotions or through your mental field, through your imagination, and so on. You're always receiving messages and internal guidance from your body that maybe you're not really paying attention to, because you have been conditioned to believe that is just crazy stuff and it's not real, so why would I even pay attention to it? And another thing is that our mind is running all the time, right? From the moment in which we wake up to the moment in which we go to bed, we have thoughts 24/7. So another important aspect of recognizing your intuition is whether or not you control your mind or your mind controls you. Because even if, let's say, you were getting these little glimpses of intuition, but if your mind is somewhere else and you're, I don't want to say dissociating, but if you are somewhere else other than in the present moment, you're not even gonna be present. It's like you're not even home when you get those, that knock of intuition. So what are the signs that you are disconnected from this part of yourself? A few signs are difficulty in making decisions, the need for external validation, the lack of confidence in oneself and in your own power, and inability to connect with your emotions. This is a big one. Or any context in which you ignore your own personal beliefs, opinions, your own internal voice, and instead put a lot of value in your external world and on the guidance that you receive from your external world. So in order to reconnect with this ability that we have to learn to tune into our body and to tune into our emotions and our sensations and feelings and honor them and sit with them as they come up instead of trying to, push them under the rug. In the video in which I was talking about the dark divine feminine and internal alchemy specifically, I gave an example in which I asked you to focus your mental space, to focus your attention on one of your hands. And I was saying that you should pay attention to its weight, its sensations, its position in space, and so on. And then I said, which one of both of your hands has more energy in it? And obviously the answer is that the hand on which you have been focusing more attention has more perceived energy. So when we're developing our intuition, we are basically doing the same exercise, only that instead of focusing on our physical body, we are focusing our attention on our energetical, emotional, and intuitive body. And so the level of energy that we become aware of, or in other words, the level of our intuition is going to keep expanding as we get more comfortable with paying attention to those sensory signals that let us know what our internal voice is telling us. And as you do this, obviously your confidence will increase because you will have more belief in yourself and more trust in your own judgment and in your own intuition. And the strength of your intuition is going to keep amplifying as you go along this process. So for me, developing my intuition was a very gradual experience because, as I've said, I had to learn to trust myself. I had to recognize what my beliefs even are. And for me, that is something that took a little bit of time. An advantage, quote unquote, that I could say I had is that I was aware of the social conditioning from a very young age. Some of you might know that I was born in Romania. I moved to Spain when I was around 7 years old. And now I live in the US. So depending on where you live in the world, and this is something that I've personally experienced, depending on the conditioning of the society that you live in, you're gonna believe certain ways, and you're gonna think in a certain way, and you're gonna behave in a certain way. And that was very apparent when I lived in Romania and I was comparing the beliefs that people in Spain have, and that was more evident when I came back to Romania when I was about 15, 16. And now that I live in the US, obviously people think very differently. So I'm able to compare those three different conditionings to each other. And at some point I started questioning myself. What do I believe? Because no matter where you are from, you're going to be molded to the environment that you're in. And no matter where you are from, people believe they are always right. Everybody tends to believe that there is one universal truth, and that is their truth, and this is the way we've been doing things since forever, so why would we even change that and just, go ahead and follow the system? And that is what everybody believes. And at some point, I began not just to question that, but to question myself. Like, what do I believe? Because I realized that my internal guidance was never at the forefront of my mind, but it was actually, the way that I was supposed to think because of the place that I was living in. And I realized at some point, that it was my conditioning that was taking those decisions for myself. So I really started to ask myself, if my beliefs are the byproduct of society, what even is my true belief? What is my intuition telling me? What is my internal guidance guiding me towards? And so I began diving deeper into that, and I began having more trust into what I believe is true. You know, not society, not my family, not my work, not, I don't know, the people that I hang out with, but me. What do I believe? And it was that moment when I began paying more attention to my intuition. And something that I was noticing is that every time I take a decision in my life, I have that glimpse of internal guidance that says, you know, I think I should rather do this. Or I think it would be better to do that. And sometimes I've listened to that. So many times I have not listened to that. And at the end, I came back to the conclusion that my initial intuition was right and that I should have followed it from the very beginning. But you know, you live and you learn, and at this point in my life, if I don't feel something is right, if there's something within me that is trying to send me a message, that's gonna be what I pay attention to. Because for me, my internal guidance is the most important at this time. And that is something that, as I've said, is really closely tied to your level of confidence. Because if I were not confident in myself, I would not have the strength to, you know, follow my beliefs if maybe I don't get the validation from the external world to support it, because many times you're not going to have that in life, and many times not only that you're only going to have yourself, but you're going to have to stand up and stand straight for your beliefs. So yeah, that was my journey. As I've said, this video was a more basic approach to intuition because I believe that you have to have that level of knowledge of self to be able to recognize that feeling in the first place. You know, many times, as I've said, we say intuition and we think astral projection or so many cool things that you can get to do with your intuition. But if you're not able to guide yourself within your own life first, how can you say that you trust that internal input? So that was today's video. I hope it helped you become a little bit more aware of yourself, and I hope it helps you start questioning a little bit more that external validation in favor of your own internal validation. So thank you so much for watching till the end. If you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe and share the video with other people that you think might benefit from this information. Thank you so much once again, and I will see you on my next video. Much love.